This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Marie Catherine Massie.
I did a movie who's coming out soon, like last year, is like a Western, and we actually had like full blanks and like explosions on set. It was
Sure, that was your movie. That's why.
I was not mine.
Oh,
No,
I
no, no.
thought.
I was just working on a movie.
So who spent $1 million?
And
It's okay.
I'm not sure there's like a few producer listed, but it was such a cool experience because I love action personally, and like they had horses on set, they had the full blanks, like they even like had a lady stunt actress coming from LA, and she came to do like a big stunt where like she comes on fire like out of the window and she's crawling and like she gets shot in the head.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's great. I mean, if people are doing that, I don't know why I thought that was your movie. And I was like, okay,
no,
she can give me a few millions to make a movie.
no. I wish.
Okay, no, that's great if they're doing that. But then there are people who are not doing that
Oh no, for
because
sure.
all this stuff. The other interesting fact is green screen and CGI. If that's not done properly or in a good way,
Yeah.
it's gonna look bad, right? So there's that thing too.
I'm not the biggest fan of CGI. I like have a tendency these days to rewatch a lot of like 80s and 90s movies because I think it's too much CGI now, in my opinion. Um, yeah, I mean, I still go to movies like at least once a week, but yeah, I really miss practical effects. Like, I hope that as a director, I'll be able to work with only practical effects. I know it's not gonna happen, but like,
Yeah, sometimes you have to uh, adapt to
yeah.
the the parameters that are given to you, and
I just think it looks so much better. And it
right.
ages better. Like, have you watched movies from like maybe 15 years ago with the CGI from 15 years ago?
You have to give me an example of a movie.
Like The Hobbit.
Yeah,
I don't think it aged really well.
I really have to go back and say I don't. I
But Lord of the
don't
Ring
have
aged really
any
well,
memory. Okay.
in my opinion. Like,
Mm.
because there was like less CGI in it. And like there was like more practical effect and actual like makeup. So like I thought like years later it actually looks better. But I'm sure it's
Well,
also a
it's
question
been
of
a
taste.
while. Yeah, sure, of course. Like everyone will have a different perspective.
Yeah.
So definitely there are perspectives,
Mhm.
and different people have different understanding or different take on different things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's harder for actors to like I think I was reading an interview with Ewan McGregor when he was doing like the Star Wars. He was just like, well, everything is shot on a green screen. I don't even have like a partner. Like I think at some point he was saying he was bored, like to
Self-talk. Okay.
yeah.
Your line. Let me give you my line. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's becoming, I think, one of the things I would say, it has become too mechanical that you are losing that fun of being around other human beings, a sense of community,
Yeah.
and which is still probably alive. Maybe when you work on an ensemble in a play or a musical,
Yeah, I love
right?
plays.
And film has become too
Yeah.
individualistic. And when I say film, same for TV,
Yeah.
series. You're just concerned about uh, how these characters will come to life later,
Mm-hmm.
and or how someone appears on the camera. Like for example, which side is strong, which side is not that great, is the chin up or low, and all the good stuff that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, it's a different medium, and I think it's very intense and it's hard on you emotionally.
Yeah, no, for sure. And as you said, like the amount of takes, super quick. It's like go, 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 So yeah.
I think you always aim for a particular perfection on
Yeah, no,
camera,
for sure.
and that requires a massive amount of emotional involvement.
Mhm.
You're watching a character or more than one character on camera, monitor, sorry, and then the camera is on their face. And I have said that on my shows and movies. It does not matter to me how truthful you are in that moment because that's what you're being taught. Be truthful, be truthful. And that's great. You could be as truthful. Say there's a scene, you look, you were happy
Mhm.
or you were sad. These are extreme two emotions, human emotions. If the camera does not read you being happy or sad, for me as the director,
Yeah.
it's not true. It's not the truth I am looking for. So now, how do we make adjustments? Sometimes I might have to jump in, and I know that's a lot of actors don't like that. You're gonna tell me how to act, but the
I
thing
don't like
is,
that.
no one likes that because that becomes more like a character criticism,
Yeah.
right? Like you think I'm not good enough, but then because I know in a long run
Yeah.
how the movie will turn out. And sometimes I might make them uh, do physical adjustments. Like, for example, making your eyebrows intense, change your breathing pattern. Whether or not that's required by the script or that
Yeah.
particular scene, but just to enhance the character so he or she comes across whatever we are telling. We're telling a story. Is she tired? Is she pissed?
Yeah.
Is she happy? Is she celebrating? Right? And then there are nuances. For example, if the character is coming across mischievous
Mhm.
versus naughty, versus a scheming, someone with a
Mhm.
scheme. These are very minor differences. And if there are two scenes of the same character, and we have to tell the story where she's different or he's different, that might require some work here and nothing to do with your emotions.
Sometimes, like, what I like to do instead of like showing the actors is like kind of like explain to them like how they're supposed to feel in the moment, and like on the second take, I feel that they usually like do much better.
That's great. Two takes. No, I mean, sometimes I think I had that struggle where that emotion does not translate into the expression they're giving on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be several reasons. And, like, for example, my face, if my face is like that, uh, then because I don't see myself. So there are a lot of emotions I might have in the subway.
Yeah.
But do I see those emotions all? No, right?
No.
So I can try my best. If you're giving me a note that Franklin look more intense, more angry.
Yeah.
So, for example, angry, frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
right, and unhappy, upset. How do you differentiate when these all emotions are coming from the same vein?
Mm-hmm.
So the expression, if the expression is not, it doesn't have variations, then there is a chance the character might look boring, especially if it's a 2 hour long movie.
For sure.
And then if they overdo, then that'll look like outdated acting because we don't act like this anymore, like in black and white movies.
Depends in which culture.
Oh, in Canada they do that?
No.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, to me, Canadians were, hey, what do you want? No.
Yeah, no, definitely. But there are, I feel like there are some cinemas where like they act like a little bigger. Like for example, in Bollywood, like I've worked on like a Dallywood movie, and
That's
like
not Bollywood, just so you know.
yeah, Dallywood. I know.
There's a different country, even in
Yeah, yeah.
the long
It's Bangladesh.
ago, yeah, that even in I think India they have 9 industries.
That's amazing.
Hollywood is one of them.
Yeah. But yeah, the acting was like a bit more like kind of expressive,
Theatrical,
Yeah,
yeah.
more theatrical, yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, I think it's different. And oh my god, for me, I think the hardest thing too was so I came from a theater background, and the first time I took an on camera class, oh my god, my teacher, we say hello to you if you're listening right now. Yeah, Henry was like having like a hard time with me because he said like I was coming with like such big energy, and he said I was like and he's like, okay, it's in a camera that is
Right.
like
Yeah.
this big. Like it took me a while to like kind of
Yeah,
like
it takes a while to get adjusted to that, and especially say the scene begins with, and some directors they don't have time to explain it to you, so they'll ask you to, hey, just tone it down. So if a scene begins, say, in a wide shot, you bring that energy, and then scene the beat changes into a medium shot or extreme close up.
yeah.
So they might just say, hey, don't move your eyes at all. And the best thing I think is just to follow their lead. The more explanations you're going to ask, they might not like it because of the pressure,
Mm-hmm.
depending what project you're in. But if there's an arc of the scene that requires them to go in and out of the angles,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on camera, especially if they are swapping lens,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot, and then the director is also under pressure. I remember we were talking about one of the channels. The guy who coached me, he shared with me they were looking for a director for a series, and this was a laugh track series, which is not common anymore. So they had a director, and the producer told the director they wanted it to be done in 12 days. And the director was like, that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the producer is not going to listen to the technical side.
Mm-hmm.
Producer heard it's not possible means he can't do it. So the producer asked the assistant to get another director.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired a director who said, okay, yeah, we can do it in 12 days. Because a lot of times there's money or
Mm-hmm.
the production deciding force or people, decision makers, they have their own understanding. Okay, I'm finishing up this project in 4 days. And I once heard this by Johnny Depp and in an interview, and he's talking about someone asking him, hey, would you do a feature playing Donald Trump? And he said, yes. So we plan to film it in 4 days. And it was like, 4 days. Okay. But they might have a plan.
Maybe it's a one take.
Nah, I don't think one take. No, no one's gonna memorize the whole thing and
No, but they do like even when they say it's one take, like they do subtle cuts, right? Like the movie Rope, I think from Alfred Hitchcock, like they would like kind of like zoom on like a coffin or something. I think I can't remember what it was, but like they would zoom on objects and you wouldn't see it, but there was actually a cut there, and like they, yeah, a lot of one take.
Yeah, I don't know, but certainly they might be thinking they can't afford to put down more money. And sometimes when people think on affordability, they also think like how much is the return there. If I make a movie in 4 days and invest this kind of money, it's okay if we lose money. But if it's like a 30-day thing, oh, that's a lot of money. Right?
But the thing is, like, if you make something that is going to be good, it's going to take time for sure. And I think now, like in our day and age, like the budgets are contracting. I know in Canada we definitely have this. Like I have some friends that are directors, like on TV, and I know that like sometimes they have to do like an insane amount of pages in a day, but they do it because they're professionals and like the actors are professionals, and props to them like to be able to like do it.
Yeah. Still, is it healthy emotionally? Maybe not. And can it affect the lives of the talent? Yes. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that why does a fabric of a community change? Someone is rushing to the set. They're going to drive insanely because they are running late.
Mm-hmm.
Now they are coming back after having a 16-hour shoot.
Mm-hmm.
They are half asleep. That's going to affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they are in a romantic relationship, it's going to affect their relationship with the spouse. What if they also are struggling to raise a kid from a different partner? So everything gets affected when your average human being, it doesn't matter, actor or a professor or a waitress,
Mm-hmm.
we all are human beings. We need a certain amount of sleep, in rest, in hydration, and turning off our brains. And that's where I really value the belief system. In our what do we call in the movie that's on Prime, there was one day because the talent wasn't available and we took next day off. I think we went and filmed for 16 hours, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There was one day in the series we filmed for 14 hours consecutively, but also that one day might be among uh, say 400 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the norm. It was out of the norm, and it was in mutual agreement. It was a democratic way to ask everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a single person who said no to that. Otherwise, we could have changed the plan. So it wasn't forced upon the talent or the crew,
Yeah.
right? But generally, I think most of the days our shift was for everyone was called for 10 hours
Mm-hmm.
because you never know something would go wrong. But 7 or 8 was our average hour
That's good.
of film. Yeah, it's just like respecting other human beings' well-being,
For sure.
not using them like a commodity,
Mm-hmm.
and empathizing with them.
Clearly like a tough business. Yeah, we are in for that. Like I remember back in the days in Vancouver, I've worked very briefly as a production assistant, and like the days were 15 hours
Mhm.
from Monday to Friday, and sometimes we'd go over. And honestly, like you wouldn't have any energy in the weekend, like to do anything else, or but it's more a lifestyle and a choice. Like I'm not condemning it. I'm just saying like it's definitely like hard on the body. And I knew some people that managed to find time to like work out, but I was certainly not working out when I was working 75 hours.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I have the same question for the educational system
Mhm.
because at a grad school level, especially master's and PhD, most of the school, actually at an undergrad level too, but they bombard you with so much work that you don't have time for yourself. And I remember there was a gentleman, he was doing PhD when I was considering PhD,
Mhm.
and he joked, but he was like, "You don't have time, bro." And by sitting all day in the library, you develop uh, hemorrhoids. It was a joke, but still, it's like too much sitting. And a lot of times, a lot of students used to spend 12 to 14 hours in the library because
Yeah.
that's what you do: read, write, read, write, read, write. And then it takes 6 hours, not 6 hours, 6 years for you to complete your PhD and then student loan.
But do you think that it's a good thing just to prepare the students to like real life? Because in real life we constantly have deadlines, we constantly have like long days, we have to deal with family and this and this and that. Or do you think it's not healthy?
Not because, first of all, if you want to do a PhD, say you want to do PhD on Russian literature or Russian acting technique, or because modern acting started there on Stanislavski.
Mhm.
Most of your 6 years, if you're really smart, maybe 5 years, you will write research papers. 25 is probably the standard for a PhD program. And you read and you write and read and you write and read and you write. And then you finish 4 years doing that. A grade, B grade. Oh my God, I feel why is B?
And you're kind of teaching in the middle of that, right?
No, that comes after that. So,
Really?
yeah. So you do that, and then there are comp exams, right? So you have to pass, and some universities, I know one university, where if you fail the exam, they'll give you a master's and send you home. But then there are universities, if you fail the exam, they'll send you home, and all that money you spent in 4 years is gone, or 5 years is gone. If you pass that exam, then you are supposed to write your thesis and you can begin working as a TA, teaching assistant. So you'll sit with a professor, check kids' grades, and deal with the mess. And then you have a PhD after that. But all those papers you wrote, are never applied anywhere in real life. Only things that are applied if you are from biotech or some sort of engineering, or you're making a car, or you're making something that's going to save the energy or whatever. But if the discipline is more on literature, music, arts, dance, whatever, it's more academic and less practical. And then you have that doctor of whatever, then you can do is teach, and there are now a lot of opportunities to teach. That's another problem. So you might have a PhD and end up working as a PA instead, production
But it
assistant.
depends. Like, for example, there are historians that, like will work on podcasts or like on TV shows, or are going to be like consultants or on like TVs, for example, and they have a PhD and they don't necessarily like teach.
Right. But what percentage of jobs is out there?
I don't know that I'm not saying, but I'm just saying like there are options for sure.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you work at Discovery Channel and National Geographic Channel. But again, the percentage. Have you seen them publishing online like, we are looking for a talent with a PhD in Roman history? So that becomes very difficult, And same with the news channels if you have something to do with political science.
But again, as we were saying earlier, like, is the PhD just for getting a job or is it to get a higher education?
It depends how you view it. People I know, if they were from a wealthy background of a different country,
Mm-hmm.
let's say Pakistan, Iran, I know an Iranian couple, they were doing PhDs. India, they do a lot of scientific work and all that. So they have two kinds of objectives. First is they have a global market. I know there were, at least I know two Indians who were in the same dorms as me doing PhD in some sort of scientific discipline. One of them found a great job in London, the other one found a great job in Italy. So they get higher education to secure their future in that field, and the whole world was open for them. Then there are people who would do a degree just to have another uh, uh, feather in their hat to say, I have a PhD. I think that trend is diminishing to come to the US to do that. But for example, in countries like Pakistan, people would still do that. They got a PhD in education and they might not care what they're doing because they have some extra money.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, there was a gentleman here who mentioned the cab driver in Saudi Arabia said, "Oh, I did my PhD from the US." And he went to an Ivy League school here, did his PhD here, went back. He's driving a cab because he likes to connect with people. It's not about money and all, right? So that was for personal edification or fun, or but he was able to afford it. But say if you were from the US, if you are not really aiming to become an expert in something, usually you don't. It's not the culture that you're going to go to a law school for fun, because education is hard. You don't have a life outside that academic world when you get into the professional programs. But if you are, and then there are two things. If you could afford, that my dad or my relative, so they have a gigantic office in Midtown Manhattan, and I'm going to join them as one of the attorneys and build myself up. Okay, great. But if you're from a middle class, now you're taking out student loans. You want to do PhD because you really like that discipline and you aim to teach that. And I heard when I was in the Midwest, for one seat, there were probably 1,000 applicants.
Whoa.
Now, these are the people who want to get married. They sometimes are married. They want to pay their day to day expense bills. They want to pay rent. And they are looking for that opportunity that helps them become a white collar, middle class, sophisticated family member. So they want to become a lawyer or a doctor. Doctors
But
very
you
expensive.
don't need a PhD to be a lawyer. You just need to go to law.
Sorry, JD. JD is a doctorate.
Ah,
You need that in the US. In Canada, it's LLB.
Yeah.
That's a different system.
because it's like you go to law school for 4 years and then you do. Oh no, sorry. I think it's 3 years in the Quebec system, and then you do the bar,
1 year, yeah.
and then
Same in the British system.
yeah.
So LLB in itself is a very different education, still expensive. Depending on whom you're asking. You don't have LLB in the US.
Oh, okay.
So you have to have a doctorate to become a lawyer.
Okay.
GED, which is called Juris Doctor.
So it's like 6 years total?
No, people can do it in 4 years. But depending, how much strength you have.
Yeah.
But there are disciplines that are more dry disciplines. Like I was talking about Russian literature.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It takes like theology as an example. It might take 6 years because it's so dry and all that.
I wish I did a PhD.
Oh, in the US?
I don't know, wherever. Like I just really love school. I love university when I was there, and I wanted to do a master and a PhD. But there's also other things I wanted to pursue, like traveling and adventuring and working in film. So like yeah. But if I wish I had like 70 different lives. If I had time, I'd probably get like 7 PhDs.
Actually, I used to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It changed in the past, I would say 4 years. Were very transformative.
How so?
My struggle wasn't fully, I didn't let it affect me because of my confidence. And also, deep down, I don't know why I had this idea that I'm good looking. So that helps me. But the assurance of this confidence or good looking wasn't there around me. It was very rare. I still remember I had a very close friend, my best friend in my grad school, who was doing second masters. He was originally from New Jersey and living in Illinois. And whenever we'd go to say downtown or somewhere to just shop around or do some sort of.
You had time for shopping during your second master?
Once in a while. And once in a while, yeah. So she would say there's a lot of people and you gotta ask a question to someone. I don't even remember where. Sometimes people don't listen. You go to a coffee shop or if it's a crowded place, and she would say, okay, you go forward and smile, and she's gonna listen to you, especially if it was a female. So there were very few people I used to get that energy from. They think maybe I'm more, I'm good looking, or I'm relatable, or I have some sort of charm. Majority was not used to of seeing people like me. And their idea of being handsome, being good looking was so tied to the idea that they grew up with, which is the Western media, right? So, who is a good looking man? A man is supposed to be super skinny. I'm talking about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and in some cases more rugged. But these college kids were started with their just idea was, I think, more about skin tone or something, because they were not really in that age. The movies they were like, who were the lead actors? Like Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and who else?
And the actresses were also super skinny. Like
yeah, I mean,
if you think of like TV shows like that from like the early 2000s.
Right. Yeah. The point is, like, these kids were more like a bit. They would be in a loose crew neck shirt and shorts, and they would talk slower. One thing I think what I had to learn or fake it was to talk more. Hey, you want a slice of pizza? And I don't know if things have changed in the Midwest. So people whom I used to identify with were usually at a TV talk show, or I would see, okay, these people, let's say Ben Affleck or George Clooney,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Sheen, and they were older generation. I used to identify myself with them. If I can talk like them, dress up like them, why can't these kids? Because they are not now 16 and 17;
Mm-hmm.
they are in 20s, right? So there was a weird kind of thought process, which in itself has a lot of conflict. But in general, because I was so social and so confident, I didn't let it affect me, or I did not know it's affecting me internally.